Welcome, real estate enthusiasts, to building a thriving real estate business on The Simple Truth with Stuart. I'm Stuart, your guide. In today's episode, we'll uncover the 6 essential steps to success in the real estate industry. So, buckle up and let's dive into the strategies that will elevate your business. Right, let's get into today. And over the last 2 weeks, I've been putting together a lot of notes from agents that have been speaking to me and saying, Stuart, we want to start elevating our business. We want to take it to that next step. Where do we begin? And really, what I'm starting to hear is many individuals are looking for almost the starting gate. It's to push that reset button and go right back to the beginning and say, right, I've got the knowledge, I've got skills, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in a different industry. But where I am right now, I need to push a reset because it appears that I possibly could be going down the wrong rabbit hole and I'm not getting the results that I really want. And that's exactly what I've put together in today's session. And really, there are 6 steps that I'm going to take you through that's going to help you to have what I like to refer as a great business, not just a good business, but a great business. And each one of these particular steps is something that you can implement from today. And it's so important. You'll actually see one of the steps is to actually do the implementation right now. Not say, okay, so let me think about it and let me run with it for a couple of days. No, this is something straight after this particular session, straight after this recording, if you're watching it, you can actually then start to implement it. 6 very, very simple steps, but it's going to help you to create what I refer to as a great business. And ultimately, a great business is a business that's giving you the rewards to live the life by design, not by default. So that's something to remember. So let's kick into. So step number 1, and this is something as a coach, I spend so much time with my clients trying to unravel this because the clarity of having a great goal is actually quite complex. You see, goals is something that can actually be bestowed on us by somebody else. So those are what we call influential goals. These are goals where you see somebody, hey, that's great. They got driving a fancy car, living in a big house, going overseas on a holiday. And you say, well, that's what I want. And it's bestowed by somebody else because you're comparing yourself to somebody else. So what we need to really do is step 1 is we need to create that meaningful goal, that goal that really drives you. It has that passion, but it's true to you. That's what's so important. And in doing that, it's not just simply sitting down and going, right, what's my goal? Where do I see myself in 5 years' time? It's actually taking it down to a little bit more of a complex level. And what I'd like you to do is when you start thinking about your goals, I want you to not only just think about what's that one big goal in your life. I want you to start looking at the meaningful goals. So what's the difference between a big goal and a meaningful goal? Well, a big goal typically is a tangible goal. That's a goal of, I want to buy a new car. I want to get a big house. I want to have this amount of money in my bank account. Those are tangible goals that once you achieve, guess what? You're actually going to start to relook at that goal and say, well, I've bought the car. Now I want to buy another car. So it just continues and continues and continues. A meaningful goal is a goal that actually has a purpose and a drive that's behind it. And that purpose and drive that is behind it gives you this emotional connection that you require. So meaningful goals is things like, well, I actually want to transform the way my family lives. And that's why we always say you want to have these goals that is by design. And really, it has some emotional connections to it. Now, how do we do that? Because as you can see, to make goals that have that emotional connection and have a meaningful are actually quite complex. So I've got a very simple method that I use that I want to share with you. When you're sitting down with your goals, what you need to do is you break your goals into two sections and you say, I've got professional goals and I've got personal goals. Because when you can actually see this balance in your life between professional and personal, it actually gives you this more meaning in your life. So when we look at professional goals is something in your business. Where do you want your business to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you want to have a goal that is doing 30 sales a year? Is it a goal where you want to grow a team? What does that professional goal look like? And spend some time to think where you'd like it to be. Write that down and the impact that that can have, whether you're developing a team, whether it's something that's going to be on your personal side, but really start to describe what your professional goal looks like in the next 3 to 5 years as a paragraph. So that's the first half. The second half is your personal goals. And ultimately, what you start doing is you're saying, again, in the next 3 to 5 years, where do I see myself in my relationships? Where do I see myself in my personal development? That's basically in knowledge. What do I want to learn? What do I want to accomplish? Do I want to study a new qualification or something like that? And where do I see myself in my health? So when we start looking at our personal side, we're starting to look at a little bit more of the complexity behind it. And why that's so important is when we've got a strong individual on our personal side, it's going to help us in our professional side because we're that strong individual. We're the same person. When we turn up to our business in a very strong manner in our professional side, it starts generating that life by design, which filters back into your personal side. So step number one is to create these meaningful goals. And to create these meaningful goals, you break it into two parts: professional, personal. Professional, where do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Personal, where do you see your relationships, your development as far as your knowledge and skills, or your health in the next 3 to 5 years? And once you start to identify that, ultimately what you're creating is a goal that actually has a lot of meaning and drive behind it. So that's step number one, is to create that meaningful goal. And trust me, once you've got that, you can actually see clarity. You're going to be able to see and visualize your goal and how everything starts to entwine. It's not just simply, hey, I want a car. Now, when we start looking at step number two, and step number two is actually so important. And the reason for it is it's to understand why step number one, the meaningful goal, why is that meaningful goal so important to you? All right, so we're taking this a little bit deeper. Now, we've created those meaningful goals. You've written it out as a paragraph. You now start to look at it and say, right, why is it so important for me to have my business looking like that in 3 to 5 years? You need to ask yourself that question. Why is it so important? Why is that 3 to 5 year business goal so important? And you write down that paragraph. And you do the same on your personal. Why is it so important for me to be a certain level of qualification, certain part in my life as far as my health and my relationships? You've got to be able to almost get this emotional connection to those particular personal and those meaningful goals that you actually have. And when you start doing that, you're going to have this little sub question. And the sub question, really, it's going to rock your boat, is what are the consequences if I don't achieve those goals? So when you start looking at the why, you're asking yourself, why is it so important? But to that, you're going to ask yourself, if I don't achieve that goal, what are those consequences in my professional life and in my personal life? And when you can start to uncover those particular consequences, So I don't hit my personal goals, which means my health is going to start to go down. That's going to have a negative impact on my family, my relationships. It's not really where you want. So I need to get to that particular point so that I can be the strongest in that point. You can see how you can start to feel these goals coming closer and closer to you. And this is really the formula to start creating that lighthouse, to create that beacon to give you direction in your business. It is so important. So many times people forget the element of the goals and the importance behind those goals, and they become very, very lost. Now, through the journey of discovering these particular goals, what you're going to start to do is you're going to say, well, let's just use it as an example. I want to grow a real estate team. I want to have basically anything from 20 to 25 agents in my real estate team, and we're going to be producing X amounts of volume every single year. That's what I'd really like to do. But you're going to start seeing that there's going to be obstacles that will jump in front of you. And in order to overcome those particular obstacles, there could be things that you've got to do that really makes you, when I say uncomfortable, for instance, picking up the phone and actually phoning agents and saying, hey, do you want to join my team? That could actually feel like a bit of pain. And last year, I did a session with Tony Robbins, and it was one of these online sessions. And he's got this quote. And I must admit, when I was putting this particular session together, this quote actually jumped back into my plate. And he actually works with this on an ongoing basis. And this is the quote: we will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. And I thought, man, that is just so, so appropriate. Because if we're wanting to grow our real estate business, we've got to go through elements of, when I say pain, it's not physical pain, it's pain that I really don't want to do that. And we will do anything not to do it. However, to go and do things that's going to give us pleasure, to change our life, we just don't seem to put the energy behind it. So really what we need to do is we need to put more energy in what's going to give us pleasure. How do we do that? Well, we've got the clarity on that particular goal. We've got underlying purpose and reason that's driving us. And that's going to basically overcome those pain factors to allow you to start getting towards that particular goal. This is that beacon that we refer to in coaching. This is the beacon that every single one of you should be having. And this particular exercise, these two steps: one, find that meaningful goal; two, understand the importance and the reason why that goal is so important to you, is really where the foundation starts. And this is really, if you want to call it, part one of the 6-step process that you need to go. Spend the next 2-3 days really analyzing this, breaking this down for you so that you can actually start to create that powerful goal for you. Now, once you've done that, I'm now going to start pulling it into your real estate business. And really, these last 4 components, these 4 steps that I'm going to go through, they're kind of fairly obvious, but you've never really thought about it. And that's what we can do. But we can't do these next 4 steps if you don't have that goal in place, because that's going to be giving you that energy and that drive to move forward. So step number 3 is, and it's something in real estate, it's something in all businesses. Business is all about numbers. In order for us to make X amount of profit in our business, we've got to do X amount of transactions in our business. And without those particular transactions, we're not going to make that particular money. Now, to get those transactions, we need X amount of listings in our business, because if we don't have listings, we've got no properties to sell, so it means you're not going to get transactions. Well, those listings, the only way we're going to get listings is with appointments. If we don't make X amount of appointments, we are not going to get those many listings, which is not going to give us those transactions, which is not going to give us that particular profit. So appointments, well, what do we need to do with appointments? We need to have conversations with people to set up those particular appointments. So in essence, when we start looking at our business and understanding it is a business of numbers, we need to know, well, how many conversations should we have? How many appointments should we have? How many listings should we have? How many actual transactions do we need to process? And how many of that will give us that profit? You see, one thing that I can share with you, real estate, and actually any business, is extremely predictable when you know the numbers. for many agents that I'm coaching, they don't know the numbers. So their business is not predictable at all. Now, let me share with you a couple of numbers that will help you out here. So the very first number is, and whether you are new to real estate or whether you've been in real estate for many, many years, you might find the longer you're in real estate, the better you are at your conversions. So the first number is for every sale that actually goes through your books, it normally equates to around about 80, that's 80 real estate conversations. All right, that's on average. You might be better in your conversions. You might have been in the industry for 10, 15 years, and you might find that your conversion ratio might be down, that you're able to have maybe 50 conversations, real estate conversations to get one sale. Now, a real estate conversation is having a conversation with somebody, and in that conversation, you're talking about real estate, not about how's your dog and how's business going. It's got to have in some form of inclusion of real estate. How's the real estate market? How's the suburb, etc. So knowing the numbers is 80 conversations, real estate conversations will equal to one sale. Now, if you wanted to do, let's say, for instance, you wanted to do 2 sales every single month, and in one of the months you want to do a bonus sale. So in essence, 12 months, you'd like to do 25 sales in a year. 25 sales in a year will transform your life. You'll live life by design. You'll never be looking back. How can you actually do that? Well, it's quite straightforward and simple. It starts out by saying, right, we know that we need to do 80 conversations, real estate conversations, to do one sale. Well, if we want to do 25 sales, we're just going to be working the maths. The maths is 25 sales times that by 80 conversations, because we know 80 conversations gives us one sale. So 25 times 80, simple math, is 2,000 conversations that we've got to have in a year. Now, I know you're looking at this and going, oh my gosh, 2,000 conversations. This is a massive goal. This is really going to blow my, how am I going to do 2,000 conversations? Well, just think of it this way. That's over a year. Okay, so that's 2,000 conversations in a year. Let's break this down to months. Now, when we are working in our numbers, generally we work our year not as 12 months, but as 10 months. And the reason we do that is we have things in the year, for instance, we get sick, we go on leave. Life happens around us where we're not able to work. So in essence, what we do is we actually take 2 months, which is almost, it's a breathing month where we're not focused on our real estate business because of life that happens around us. So we take these 2,000 conversations and we break that down into 10 months. Now we're looking and saying, well, that's only 200 conversations in a month. All right, now that still seems like a big number. 200 conversations in a month. So if you have 200 real estate conversations every single month, you're going to be on track to doing those 25 sales. But let's break that down even further. Let's look at having a 20-day month, a working. So basically, you're going to focus 20 days of the month just on real estate. So whether it's a morning, afternoon, you're actually going to take 20 sessions in a particular month to focus on those 200, which means in each session, you only need to speak to 10 individuals. So we're now breaking these numbers down, 10 individuals in each session. And you can do a session every single day. So you only need to speak and have 10 real estate conversations. Now, that actually takes you way back because you're thinking, well, 10 a day, that's actually not too bad to get 25 sales. I'm sure that's worth it. Now, when we look at those 10 conversations, well, who do we actually speak to? And that's going to be straightforward and simple. It's something that goes like this. Take half of them. So 5 of your clients or 5 of those conversations should be with your circle of influence. What we commonly call, these are your contacts. These are people that you know already. You've already done business with them. You've already had personal relationships with them, whether they're past colleagues, friends, etc. Each day, 5 conversations with just the people that you know already. They're easy conversations and just asking them, hey, how's things are going? You know, real estate is really picking up. Are you knowing anybody that's looking at buying or selling, etc.? 5 conversations in there. Then 5 conversations with what we call leads. Now, leads is something that's coming into you from whether it's portals, website inquiries, maybe you've been to a social event, maybe you've done an open house or a show day and you've got some names and numbers. Those are leads. And you just phone 5 of them. Now, those are easy because they're already looking for real estate. So those conversations are already aligned. Hey, I saw you came through my show day. I just want to find out, are you still looking for a property to buy or sell? Those conversations are so easy. So each day you can actually do that. So 10 conversations, 5 with leads. These are people that have come in from whether it's portals, show days, events, etc., and 5 from people that have really been in your contacts. So you've already had some form of relationship with them. And this is about knowing those numbers. You see, I've taken this all the way down. All you need to do is speak to 5 leads, 5 contacts, 10 conversations per day, run that over 20 days, run that over 10 months. You've just slam dunk 2,000 real estate conversations, which is going to equate to roughly 25 transactions. And I'm sure each and every one of you think, I can actually do that. Now, that was step number 3, is knowing your numbers. On the back of that, step number 4 is, now that you're doing those numbers, many of us start to internalize it and say, all right, I've made 3 calls today, 10 calls today, 20 calls today. No, you need to track those numbers. You need to, step 4 is create a tracking system, whether it's a simple checkbox where you're actually saying, I've got this little spreadsheet that I've created for 20 days in the actual month. There's 10 little blocks. 5 of them are for new clients, 5 of them for my sphere of influence clients. As I've made those conversations and I've spoken to somebody, I put a little cross through each one of those. Track your progress, because you're going to have those days where you're suddenly feeling sick and the momentum of making those calls suddenly disappears. And then you say, well, I have actually made it. I'm on track. You get to the end of the month and you suddenly establish, you feel you've made 200 calls, but in fact, you've made 20. You've got to track those particular numbers, because what it does, it removes any uncertainty that you actually have that you've actually done the work. You're holding yourself accountable. So step number 4, create some form of tracking, even if it's like a poster that goes on the wall, made the calls and you quickly mark them off. And that's going to give you this motivation. Hey, I need to get that 200. And once you get to those particular points, you're going to start seeing this momentum, because we know those calls that you make, they're going to lead to appointments. Those appointments are going to lead to listings. Those listings are going to lead to closings. Those closings are going to lead to money in your bank accounts. So this is a big, big part of it. Is right, know your numbers, and 2, track your numbers. So this is part 2 of these 6 steps that I've actually gone through. So part 2, as you can see, so focus on your real estate business, know your numbers and track your numbers. Put those 2 together. Now, step number 5 is very straightforward and simple. I've shared with you how to set up your goals. I've shared with you to start tracking your numbers. Now I'm going to say to you, start now. That is step 5. Start now. Don't think, hey, great, this is a fantastic idea. I'm going to start this in 2 weeks' time, or I'm going to start this at the beginning of the next month or the beginning of the next year. No, start right now. And the reason for that is, in real estate, we know that we have a 90 to 120 day cycle when we start doing things. So whatever we do today, the outcome only arrives in 90 to 120 days. And that all depends on the market. So if you only start in 2 months' time, you're actually extending when those outcomes are going to start happening. So you have to start today. Yes, for the first 90 days, it feels like nothing's happening. But then all of a sudden, things starts to turn over. Suddenly your diary starts getting busier and busier and busier. Suddenly you're starting to get more listings. Suddenly you're starting to do more transactions. Suddenly your life starts to change. So it's so important for you to start right now. Don't wait until next week. Don't wait until next month. Step number 5, start right now, that you can actually go ahead and start making those particular calls so that you can actually start to build and develop your business. 90 to 120 days, you're going to be thanking yourself that you did. So that is step number 5, is making sure that you start now. And step number 6, and this is something that way too often people do not do. And that is celebrate the successes that you've made. If you've actually had a day where you've made those 10 calls, celebrate it. At the end of the week, you've done 50 calls. At the end of the month, you've done your 200 calls. Celebrate it. I remember when I was in real estate and I worked this exact plan. That's exactly what I put into my business. 5 calls to my what I refer to as leads. These are the incoming. 5 calls to my past clients, past colleagues, etc. At the end of that, I used to celebrate every single day. Now, I celebrated in a very unique way. But remember, when you're sitting down, you're in a closed environment, you're focusing on the particular deals that are, or the calls that you're making ahead. What I would do is I would actually, once I'd made my calls, I used to go and stand outside. My celebration was the warmth of the sun, listening to the birds in the tree, and actually just looking at the nature and environments around us. It was my sense of happiness, my little place that really rewarded me. And I knew that once I'd got through those particular calls, I got that reward. And yes, every now and again, there was always a chocolate or two that I would actually also enjoy as well. So make sure that you're celebrating those successes. I remember in my first month when I did just over 200 calls, real estate conversations. And that in 90 to 120 days actually for me equated in nearly 4 sales in 1 month, which was absolutely phenomenal. I remember when I made those particular calls, I sat with my wife and I was talking about the goals and dreams that we wanted to do in our life. And I said, you know what? I actually feel good. I'm doing this that we can actually have this life by design. And that started to give me this motivation and drive for the next month. And I carried on with that. And when I've completed and I got those 4 transactions in 1 month, let me tell you something. It took a financial hole that we had, because that's what happens with real estate. We do dig ourselves and go into our savings. It took 1 month to fill in that financial hole and actually have surplus cash where we sat back and we said, this is amazing. We've got money in the bank accounts. We can actually start to do things that we want to do. That's the life by design that I refer to. So it's all about making sure that you celebrate those successes, not internally, but with the people that are around you, the people that's going to be circling with you all the time. Celebrate them. So as a quick little recap, step number 1, set those meaningful goals, something that really feels good to you. Remember, meaningful goals, it's broken down to professional, where does your business look like in 3 to 5 years, and personal, where does your personal life look like in the next 3 to 5 years in your health, your relationships, and your development as far as knowledge and skills. The second step is make sure that you understand why. Why is that goal so important to you? Why is it so important to have your business in this place in 3 to 5 years? So get that meaningful reason why it is so important. Step number 3 is knowing your numbers. It's making sure that you know how many calls I need to make in order to achieve X, Y, and Z. And if you really want to know, well, how many transactions, well, you can work it out from how much money. And we'll be doing a session in the future to actually dig into that part a little bit better. But step number 3 is know the numbers that you need to do in your business, because business is predictable when you know the numbers. Step number 4 is track those numbers so that there's no uncertainty of where you are and what you've done. You know exactly where you are to get into that predictable. Step number 5, put on those Nike shoes and just do it. Just do it. Start right now. Don't delay. Don't procrastinate. Just do it. And you're going to see those results in 90 to 120 days. And step number 6, celebrate. Make sure that you are celebrating the journey that you're going ahead, celebrating little milestones, the calls that you've done in a day, the calls that you've done in a week, in a month, the appointments that you've actually set. Make sure that you're celebrating those, because it's those celebrations that really connects you back to those meaningful goals. And you're going to start to see how your business is not just going to be good, your business is going to be great. So these are my 6 steps to having an absolutely great business. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, implement these steps and watch your business thrive. Until next time, keep building and prospering.